Hey guys, how are you doing? This is Laura here. I'm going to go through this Leaving Cert history essay with you today from the 2018 paper. It's from the topic The Pursuit of Sovereignty and the Impact of Partition and the question about the Anglo-Irish Treaty. Now I'm only going to dip in and dip out of different parts of the essay, so I do recommend you have a read through the entire essay so that it's clear in your head what exactly I'm talking about as we're going through it. But in saying that, you will be able to find a fully annotated PDF of the essay on Studyclix if you would like a little bit more detail on it. You'll see that I'm firstly going to talk about the question itself, because we need to be really clear in our Leaving Cert. Okay, this is the choice I've made. I'm doing this essay. Am I really sure about all the things that I have to do? Am I clear about the path that I'm heading down with this essay? So I would always recommend you look out for that little word, AND, and the word both. That tells me straight away that there are two parts to this question, because I have to talk about 1, the negotiations, and 2, the terms of the Anglo-Irish Treaty. Now, the marking scheme will tell you that you don't have to talk about both in equal length. It doesn't have to be 50-50, but I do have to talk about both. And that can be a common thing or a common mistake that people make. They talk loads about one and too little about the other. So be careful there. When I see a date in a question, I see the date 1921 there. Okay, I need to be aware of that because I need to make sure that I give some context and some background to that date. What was going on up to that date that created a need for this Anglo-Irish Treaty? And then I'm going to go a little bit after that date, obviously, as I go through my essay and certainly in my conclusion. But be aware of the dates all the time. The third thing I want to point out to you here, guys, is that word controversial. Now, when we hear that word nowadays, sometimes we associate it with something really, really scandalous. And in relation to this kind of a history essay, it might necessarily be something massively scandalous. So look at that word controversial and think about the effect of whatever the topic is that you were just speaking about, because the effect of it is what was controversial. Maybe it created a divide. Maybe it deepened a divide. Maybe it created resentment. Maybe as a result of this, so-and-so left their job or left the party. Or maybe as a result of this, violence increased or so-and-so was killed. Any of those kind of things. In what way was this controversial? What was the effect of it? And if I do that, then I am definitely exploring the word controversial. I am making an argument and I'm aware of the question. And the examiners are looking for that all the time. In fact, the Chief Examiner's report in recent years has spoken about case studies specifically, how they are an important feature, but they should not become the exclusive basis for answering of questions. So what's often happening is people are simply summarising a case study. You need to be aware of the narrative and or analytical demands of the question. So yes, you are giving a narrative. You are telling the story of the Anglo-Irish Treaty, for example, but you are also analysing it. Be very careful there that you're not simply just throwing down everything you know about the Anglo-Irish Treaty and you're not harnessing it for the specific question on the day. You need to be careful of that. The other thing the Chief Examiner points out is that you have to be prepared to engage in historical argument. I remember what I was saying there about, what makes it controversial. Argue your case. Don't be afraid to give an opinion, to make an argument, to scrutinise. Ask yourself, what was the effect of this? What did it impact on? And if you can do that, then you are engaging in historical argument, using the evidence that you have learnt off and that you understand in order to make that argument. So looking at this particular essay, does this essay do that? It does it pretty well, actually. The introduction there, it looks a little bit short. I'd like a little bit more background, a little bit more context about 1916, the War of Independence. Things between England and Ireland at this time were heated. It wasn't an easy relationship at the time as they headed into trying to negotiate this Anglo-Irish Treaty as a result of 1916 and the Irish War of Independence. Those two events are essays in themselves. So it can be hard to summarise these things. That's something to practice. Practice summarising the 1916 Rising in 3 sentences, the War of Independence in 3 sentences. And if you can do that, then you can give me great context and great background. This introduction does express itself well. It does give great facts. It does give a very clear stance. This essay, at the last sentence there, this essay will discuss how both the negotiations and terms of the Anglo-Irish Treaty were controversial. So I'm very clear. I'm saying this is my opinion on it. And now I'm going to go and I'm going to prove that. So a good introduction. Moving into the main body of the essay. I'm going to look firstly at paragraph 1. The first thing that stands out to me there is all of those things that I've highlighted, really good specific facts and evidence. You see some quotes in there, you see some dates. This essay knows the correct and relevant information to make their argument. So all of those facts and evidence are crucial. The words of the question are slotted in there all the time. The IRA had achieved its goal of forcing the British to negotiate. So we're heading in now to the negotiations. The fact that they had done that in itself was kind of controversial, so you could link it back to the question there, but you could certainly link it back to the question a little bit more clearly at the end of this paragraph. The time had finally come for military action to give way to politics. A prime opportunity to refer back to the question. Something along the lines of, this new political route would be the start of controversy in the divisions that it created and the notoriety that it placed on people like Lloyd George and De Valera. You could say something like that. You can find your own language there, but just ask yourself, was this controversial, or how did this start the controversy? Just to make it a bit clearer on the question of the day, what you are actually talking about there. This final sentence could refer back to the question that little bit more. It says the time had finally come for military action to give way to politics. You could draw that out a little bit more and talk about how this new political route would prove controversial in the divisions that it created and the notoriety that it placed on people like Michael Collins and Eamon de Valera and Lloyd George, etc., etc. You can find your own language there. But that was, to me, just a little missed opportunity to create a bit more awareness of the question in this essay, and the examiners are looking for that. So be careful there. Moving on down the essay to paragraphs 6 and 7. The first sentence there is very good. From the outset, the British made it clear that a republic was not on offer. That opening sentence links back to the previous paragraph. I remember your Leaving Cert history essays should have this kind of a thread running through them to create this sense that, not all the information stands out on its own. It's important that all of this is linked in some way. Very clear language and expression in this essay. It's put together very, very well. In the second paragraph there, I've highlighted some of the things. It was a massive deal, the constitutional issues and the fact that the Crown would have some future role within the internal affairs of Ireland. And I would love if this paragraph elaborated on the arguments that these issues created, because that was a huge part of the controversy. The fact that those constitutional issues and the role of the Crown would still exist created huge arguments and debates and divisions. They were very provocative, and those were the basis of the controversy. So just a slight missed opportunity there to refer back to the question. The conclusion there, you can see it's a little bit short. We have to finish a little bit stronger than this. It does sum up the topic in a very clear and simple way. What's written here is not incorrect or inaccurate. It just needs a little bit more meat to it. I would love if this conclusion made a statement summing up your findings in this essay. So this essay has spoken about all of the issues surrounding the Boundary Commission and the choosing of the delegation and De Valera's role, or lack of role if you like. All of those things. Can you sum up all of those things using those summarising skills that I spoke about before? As I mentioned from the Chief Examiner's report, make an argument, give an opinion. A little bit more of that is needed here. This whole issue needs to be placed as well in the wider context of how this Anglo-Irish Treaty caused, this major divide in Sinn Féin and the beginning of civil war politics. Really important to place what you've spoken about so far in the wider context. Just a couple of sentences that would move this conclusion out of that good bracket up to very good, maybe even up to excellent. So that brings me to the end, guys, of my teardown of this particular Leaving Cert history essay. I hope you found it useful. I want to remind you as well that there is a fully annotated version of all of the paragraphs on Studyclix if you'd like a little bit more detail on them. And I hope to talk to you again soon. Thanks, bye.